I'm Jacob Seelman.
And I'm Tom Baker.
You're listening to Speed77 Radio,
powered by Race Chaser Online.
We are your home for motorsports.
Can't take no more than hair. Sets the flag game down. Be here to the last lap around. Worked all week, it's time to play. Gonna get a little bit sideways. Here, sets the flag game down. Be here to the last lap around. Worked all week, it's time to play. Gonna get a little bit sideways.
We're back one more time, and we've got some more motorsports action and a lot of news to cover as we roll into another hour of motorsports news, interviews, and so much more. It's Motorsports Madness, and it's only on Speed77 Radio, powered by Race Chaser Online. Tonight, we take a look back at this weekend's thrilling finish to the Rolex 24, a little bit of controversy, and we also feature a couple of rising open-wheel stars, Zach Veach and Matthew Brabham, going to take the stage later on in the broadcast. We're glad you're along for the ride. Sit back and fasten your seatbelts. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Speed77 Radio, powered by Race Chaser Online. I'm Jacob Seelman, joined tonight by my colleagues Tom Baker and James Pike, back at the round table, and the rest of our cast of characters going to be joining us here in just a little while. Joel Sebastianelli and Stephen Ovens on tap for a little bit later on in this show as well. But Tom, good to be back at the round table, and good to have really the official start of the North American Motorsports season for 2014 in the books. The Rolex 24 for the brand new Tudor United Sports Car Championship certainly gave us a lot to talk about, and for the most part, it was everything we could have asked for. More cars, more excitement, more drama, and really an exciting sprint to the finish after 24 hours.
Yeah, it really was, but I want to start the show by disputing something you just said, Jacob, because I'm not sure that all the folks affiliated with a Chili Bowl would agree that this past weekend was the official start of the North American Motorsports season. I think there's a lot of people who would say it starts with the Chili Bowl.
Okay, fine. I apologize to our open wheel fans who may have been slightly offended by that comment. However, I guess what I was looking for was the official start to the championship season. We'll go with that.
Okay, that works. And yeah, the Rolex 24 was great. You know, it's always fun to watch a race like that where you get a mix of drivers from different racing disciplines who come together. I guess the Chili Bowl would fit that too, but the Rolex is always a good time because you get some IndyCar guys, you get a couple of NASCAR guys, and of course a lot of road race specialists, and always a few surprises too. Chip Ganassi pulled a couple with the additions of Kyle Larson, excuse me, to his team, along with Sage Karam. Things like that really make it interesting, and it was a fantastic race, and I'm just very happy to report that Wayne Taylor's heart is still beating. He is still alive and kicking, and today he looks about 15 years younger.
Oh, and I'm sure there's a lot of Wayne Taylor Racing employees that are very, very happy to know that their boss is still floating around after running a stint in this weekend's Rolex 24, coming out of retirement to race with his two sons, Ricky and Jordan, and of course his longtime colleague, Max Angelelli. And you gotta feel for Wayne Taylor. They came so close, and they put their best bullet in the gun for the final stint in the form of Max Angelelli. But I tell you what, for everything that the Axe threw at the front of the field, just could not stop Action Express and Joao Barbosa.
No, even the officials couldn't stop him, could they?
No, they could not, and that's a story we'll get to a little bit later, of course, in this segment. But what a race for the Action Express team. Their second win in the last 4 Rolex 24s. Joao Barbosa gets his second Rolex watch, and for that whole team, of commanding performance. And James, I want to turn to you because you and I watched this event pretty much from start to finish, even through the night. We watched Christian Fittipaldi dominate in that number 5 machine, and just an all-star lineup, Sebastian Bourdais, Fittipaldi, and Barbosa in that 5 machine that took that car from start to finish pretty well to the front of the field and to victory lane, and there wasn't anybody that was going to stop them.
At the end of the day, there wasn't anybody that was going to stop them. And I think we've talked about this a little bit at length off the show, but yes, I'll say the Action Express team overall was the best team in prototype at Daytona. I didn't really feel like that they had such a massive gap in quality and race performance over the rest of the field. And while it is true that the Action Express team led a majority of the laps at the Rolex 24, I think you can't discredit some of the efforts that were put forth from some of the other major competitors. Obviously, Wayne Taylor Racing had a fantastic race. We walked in the middle of the night as Max Sanchielli put a ridiculous move to get to the front on a few of the lap cars, and I think Christian might have been in that 5 machine that he was there, but they had a really strong run. I think before the problems befell both of Chip Ganassi's cars, they were really quick, and it just seemed like that maybe the 5 had a little bit of luck on their side. Maybe they were able to avoid the problems and just got the better run of things as far as that's concerned. But yeah, no doubt at the end of the day, it was definitely that 5 machine that was the best car on track.
So let's talk a little bit of drama, because of course with the Rolex 24 there's always a little bit of drama, and the first story of the afternoon certainly was not the kind of drama that we were looking for in a crash about hour 3 that involved the Red Dragon number 99 Gainsco entry from Bob Stallings Racing. Memo Gidley was behind the wheel of that number 99 machine and came up on a nearly stalled GT Le Mans number 62 machine of Matteo Malicelli, and a absolutely vicious crash involving those two machines that put us under the red flag for nearly an hour to get everything cleaned up, sorted out, and get the drivers to safe ground. Both drivers transported to Halifax Medical Center. It was later reported that Memo Gidley underwent surgery on his left arm and left leg, and that he had a spinal fracture that would require a second surgery. However, both he and Matteo were alert and talking to doctors at Halifax, and actually some more news coming out of IMSA earlier this morning that Matteo had been released from Halifax Medical Center and was on his way home to Italy. So the crash, while it looked spectacular and extremely scary, could have been a whole lot worse, Tom.
Yeah, it certainly could have. When I first saw the crash, I was out when it actually happened. I had some commitments on Saturday and wasn't able to see the start of the race, and you actually were communicating with me as I was just about to head back to the house to turn the race on. I was actually at the Charlotte Racers Expo this past weekend. Really enjoyed my time on Saturday there, and want to thank Tony Stevens and all of the folks there for making me feel welcome. But yeah, I got home and looked at the replay, and just, I mean, your heart stops because it was just that kind of a crash, and you don't want to fear the worst. And then later on, when you realize, okay, the injuries were not what you would fear that they would be, you're just so thankful. I mean, God is amazing, because that was an unbelievably hard hit, and what a terrible circumstance, just something that couldn't be avoided.
It couldn't be avoided, and that was the thing. You have the factor James, of the sun that was coming right down that stretch of track in front of the drivers. You had a stalled car that Memo, at the rate of speed he was going, could not possibly have seen the GT car. A lot of different factors playing into it. At the end of the day, nobody's fault, a scary incident, but of course the best part about it, that all drivers are okay, but it's been a long, long time since I've seen a crash of that magnitude in major American sports car racing.
Or in sports car racing in general. I think if I were to try and compare something to this just around the world in endurance racing, I think of Anthony Davidson's crash in the Toyota TS030 at Le Mans in 2012 when he came all the way down the Mulsanne Straight and ran right into the back of a Ferrari and flipped right into the tire barrier. I think that was probably the most extreme crash before this one, but yeah, I'll have you know, Tom, that I was the one feeding Jacob the information because I was the one of the three of us that was actually seeing it live. And you look back at the replay, and there's just not really anything you can do, at least in terms of pointing fingers, because I believe it might have been the Tracy Crone Ferrari that the Gainsco machine was trying to get around, and he ducked out, and then all of a sudden Malicelli was right there, and there was just nowhere for Memo Gidley to go, and just it was a freak combination of lap traffic and the sun and a lack of racing room, and a very, very, I guess, rare chance that something like that happens, but unfortunately this was one of those times, and you hate to see any sort of crash that spectacular happen, but at the end of the day, the important thing is that these guys are going to be okay, and that at some point they're going to be racing again. And I think I speak for everybody when I say that that's the best news that we could hope for out of that situation.
Absolutely true. So let's talk about a little bit more drama, slightly on the better and certainly on the safer side, but I know it was a lot of interesting moments across the social media verse after this one. The end of the Rolex 24. Late race caution that many say should not have been a caution, and I'll get to my opinion on that here in a minute, but a sprint to the finish, a controversial call on the last lap, and certainly, of course, the story was the winners at the end of the day. We've talked about the Action Express team coming up big overall, and in the prototype class, you had Colin Brown and John Bennett leading the charge for Core Autosport in Prototype Challenge, taking the win for the number 54 team. GT Le Mans, you had the Porsche North America factory team, James, who we watched pretty much the entire 24 hours just do a spectacular driving job by several of their pilots. Nick Tandy and that entire crew in that Porsche 911 machine taking the win in GT Le Mans over Joey Hand and the Rahal Letterman Lanigan BMW, who came back from 2 laps down in the final 3 hours, and GT Daytona, where we saw Level 5 Motorsports take the victory, led largely in the end of that race by Townsend Bell, formerly from the IndyCar Series. So just a spectacular array of different talents taking class victories in the Rolex 24. But that GT Daytona class, Tom, was the one that had everybody talking at the end of the race.
Well, yeah, I guess you could say that. And everybody talking about, what, an hour or two after the race as well.
Yeah, an hour or two after the race, at least, because I think it was about 3 hours before we finally had resolution to all this. And James, I'll let you take a little bit of the analysis on this one, because you and I were actually discussing it live there in the final minutes. But an avoidable contact call and penalty was issued to the Level 5 team as a result of the number 45 Flying Lizard car being forced off the racetrack or run off the racetrack, however you want to look at it, in the final corners of the final lap. That penalty subsequently overturned by a review by IMSA officials. All in all, a slight mess that ultimately, I think the right decision in everybody's mind was made, but just a wild ending to the GT Daytona race, and certainly gave us a lot to look back on in Race 1 of the Tudor Championship.
especially when you take into consideration rather the fact that Alessandro Pierguidi, who was behind the wheel of that 555 Ferrari for the final stint, ran it off in the inner loop and got into the dirt with only a lap and a half to go, and allowed Marcus Winkelhock and that 45 Flying Lister machine to come up around him, coming into NASCAR 3 and get the lead. So we were all on pins and needles watching that. I know you and I were practically screaming through our headsets saying, look at what just happened there. But, at the end of the day, I think you're right, and that IMSA officials made the right decision, especially given that they were initially looking for contact as the, defining element that would provide the penalty. Personally, I think that the IMSA officials were looking for the wrong thing. I think if you really wanted to have a debate about this, that you should be looking more at a failure to provide racing room kind of penalty. And in that regard, I'm not entirely convinced that Alessandro Pierguidi's move wasn't intentional, but looking at the replay, he did such a good job of making it just look like really hard racing that at the end of the day, I don't think the evidence that we saw is conclusive enough and was conclusive enough for IMSA officials to overturn the call. So a little bit of gray area, but I think IMSA did the right thing given the situation.
And certainly it's a situation that will keep everybody talking all the way to the 12 hours of Sebring coming up in March. But again, 4 very different teams writing 4 very different chapters of the Rolex 24 at Daytona. Action Express winning in prototypes, Core Autosport winning in prototype challenge, and want to add to that entry, James Gooey and Mark Wilkins co-driving that number 54 machine. GT Le Mans, Richard Lights, one of those co-drivers with Nick Tandy and Patrick Pile. Pile was the driver that we saw run the majority of the final stints in that one. And just, again, the unbelievable GT Daytona finish, Alessandro Pierguidi driving for level 5 and grabbing the win, joining Scott Tucker, Jeff Siegel, Townsend Bell on the top step of the podium. So, Chapter 1 of the Tudor United Sports Car Championship written, and now we go on to Chapter number 2 in the middle of March for the 12 hours of Sebring. It'll be the first time we see these Daytona prototype drivers race on the Sebring course, and now we go from a track where the Daytona prototypes have run many a lap around Daytona to a track where the ex-ALMS guys, James, have run many a lap around, and it's got you and I wondering, how is Chapter 2 going to turn out, and could we see a very different race when we get to Sebring?
I don't necessarily know if it will be all that different, but if it's one team to watch, I think you have to look at the defending ex-ALMS champions in that Muscle Milk Nissan Oreca machine that this weekend was piloted by Klaus Graf, Lucas Fleur, and Alex Brundle. They were the fastest of the ex-ALMS prototypes, and they're only finished 3 laps behind the Corvette DP that won the race from Action Express Racing. And given that this is an ex-ALMS race that the ex-Grand Am guys have not been here in a very, very, very long time, just on their own. Grand Am itself has never come to Sebring, but I would think that we should expect a really, really big performance out of Pickett Racing, and I think to some degree also the Extreme Speed Motorsports, although Scott Sharp on the Tequila Patron machines, if they can avoid some of the gremlins that they had to deal with in the 24 hours, wouldn't shock me to see one of those 3 cars maybe against one of the Corvette DPs.
And we'll certainly be watching when we get to Sebring in the middle of March. I believe that's March, I want to say 16th rather, going to be the 12 hours of Sebring. So it's going to be fun to watch Chapter 2 of the Tudor United Sports Car Championship roll unified sports car racing once again into North America. And with that, we're going to take our first caution flag, but before we send you away to these words, want to offer condolences to the UARA family and to the owners of UARA, Wink and Carrie Bodenheimer, on the loss of KLB's father earlier today. Part of that situation with the Bodenheimer family being the situation why UARA did decide to suspend their 2014 season. Obviously, the Bodenheimers have always been a family that have been very close to the racing world and have been at the racetrack and the short tracks many, many, many times throughout the years. And all of us at Speed77 Radio and Race Chaser Online offer both Wink and Carrie our condolences, and again, we hope to see both of them back at the track very soon. With that, we send you away to commercial, and when we come back, we'll have more motorsports news and interviews. You're listening to Speed77 Radio and Race Chaser Online. We are your home for motorsports.
Packers,
Vikings,
Red State,
Blue State.
We come from different places.
Uptown,
Downtown.
We come to different conclusions.
half empty,
Half full.
But no matter how different we are, we're all connected, and we can all make a difference. That's why United Way brings people, expertise, and resources together to improve the education, income, and health of our communities, the building blocks for a better life. When we live united, our efforts, magnified by others, add up to real change. Children succeed in school, families gain financial stability, the health of our neighbors improves, and suddenly, so do our communities. But real change won't happen without you.
Live united.
So let's look beyond our differences.
Live united.
One by one, let's make a difference. Let's reach out a hand to one and influence the condition of all.
Live united.
Give, advocate, volunteer. Live United. Sign up today at liveunited.org. Brought to you by United Way and the Ad Council.
Did you know that most teens who drink alcohol get it from people they know? Usually their friends or family members. But regardless of where they get it, alcohol puts teens at risk for injury, to themselves and to others. You can help make it a safe summer for the teens you know. Don't serve them alcohol. It's unsafe, it's illegal, and it's irresponsible. Find out more at don'tserveteens.gov. That's don'tserveteens.gov. A message from the Federal Trade Commission and this station.
I'm Jacob Seelman.
And I'm Tom Baker,
You're listening to Speed 77 Radio.
powered by Race Chaser Online.
We are your home for motorsports. Welcome back to Motorsports Madness here on Speed 77 Radio and RaceChaserOnline.com. Jacob Seelman, James Pike, and Tom Baker around the round table as we talk the latest in motorsports news and interviews. And Tom, James, I'll start with you. Some interesting news coming out of the NASCAR garage here about the last hour or so. We've just gotten some reports out of the Turner Scott Motorsports camp that Arrowhead is abruptly pulling their sponsorship from the Turner Scott team. It sounds like citing changes and issues from within the Arrowhead organization themselves. And right now, if the reports are true, it's looking like it's stranding Jeb Burton out on a very, very lonely island. And as we get set to roll into Daytona here in about 2 weeks for Speed Weeks, this is so sudden, it makes you wonder, where do we go from here?
And really, where does Jeb Burton go from here? Because that's really the one driver in the Turner Scott stable that's going to affect the most, given that Arrowhead was the primary sponsor on his number 4 Chevy Silverado last year and was going to be the primary sponsor for this season as well. So I would hate to see Jeff out of a truck. He's shown so much pace in the past year, and I really hope that if he loses his ride at Turner Scott, that something comes together, because he's just one of those drivers that if you give him a truck, he'll be able to find his way to the front some way, somehow. He'll be at least up there fighting for it. He's too talented to not be fighting for wins.
Yeah, he is. And Tom, I want to turn to you on this. Obviously, the potential of Jeb Burton not being able to race at Daytona, a very stunning development in the NASCAR garage. But it goes to show you, sponsorship right now in this motorsports economy is king.
Well, it really is, and this is an unfortunate setback for that team and for Jeb Burton. Unfortunately, it is a business, and that's really, I don't know, obviously, what the particulars of the situation are with Arrowhead, but you never like to see something like this happen so close to the start of the season. There's never a good time to lose a sponsor, but this is about the worst possible scenario for Turner Scott and for that particular group. I'm just hoping that perhaps someone will step up now and make it possible for Jeb to at least get to the first few races to give them some time to either have Arrowhead resolve the issues or perhaps someone step up for the long haul. But Jeb's he's an excellent competitor and certainly was and would be a candidate to win the race. It would just be very disappointing if he couldn't make it down there at this point. So, really unfortunate for that group.
It is unfortunate. Turning again to Daytona International Speedway and a report from out of the NASCAR garage area. James, and I'll turn back to you on this one. The report coming out that though Tony Stewart will be cleared to drive at the Daytona International Speedway in time for the Sprint Unlimited, Tony saying in a quote himself earlier this weekend that his leg will only be about 65% healed by the time they strap in for the Daytona 500. Obviously, that poses the risk of potential re-injury to that leg, or at the very least aggravating the previous injury. He's got the titanium rod in the leg to stabilize it, but certainly raises a lot of questions getting ready to go into Daytona regarding Tony Stewart and not necessarily his chances to win the race, but the what-ifs of if something happens.
Well, here's the thing with Tony Stewart. He said multiple times in multiple interviews after the sprint car wreck that he broke his leg in Las Vegas that he would do it all over again if he could, even if it meant he had to break his leg again. Because Tony's just one of those guys that doesn't really care whether or not he should or shouldn't be racing. If Tony wants to race, then Tony Stewart is going to race. And if he owns the car like he does in practically everything he runs now, there isn't going to be anyone that stops him. So I have no doubt that he's going to at least give it a run at Daytona. And the only way in which I can see him potentially not doing well in the 500 or not running some of these races is if he decided that he wasn't feeling up to the task. And knowing Tony, I think even then he'd probably try and grit his teeth and go through it, especially at the 500 where he is the second most successful driver in terms of wins across all series at that racetrack, only behind the late great Dale Earnhardt. You know that he's hunting for that 500 win that's eluded him for so many years, and if there's one race that he'll shell out anything for and be happy to break his leg literally to get a win in, it would have to be that one.
Yeah, it would have to be, and we know Tony is going to be going for it as he does every year. It makes me think back to how close he came in 2008 after leading on the last lap at the 500, but certainly going to pose a couple of very interesting stories as we get closer to Daytona Speed Weeks, which kick off in just about 2 weeks' time from Daytona International. And with that, we are going to hit the bottom of the hour and take our second caution flag of the program here tonight. When we come back, though, we're going to move into the open wheel side of things and really kick things into high gear. We're going to have Joel Sebastianelli in-house ready to talk some open wheel stuff from the IndyCar and F1 worlds, and we'll also have 2 exclusive driver interviews from Andretti Autosport Indy Lights drivers Zach Veach and Matthew Brabham. Those coming up when we come back. You're listening to Motorsports Madness on Speed77 Radio, powered by Race Chaser Online. Stay with us.
For 17 years, Stock Car Steel has been a leading materials supplier to the racing industry. We're proud they're a motorsports content partner here at Race Chaser Online. The biggest names in NASCAR trust Stock Car Steel for raw materials such as carbon steel, chrome moly, DOM, aluminum, plastics, and much more. You can't build a race car without the basic materials, and Stock Car Steel is the place to get them. Don't forget to also visit Stock Car Steel's sister company, SRI Supplies, for racing and industry. SRI is the place to go for all your shop supply needs. Nuts, bolts, rivets, tapes, adhesives, cutting tools, chemicals, body shop supplies, paint shop supplies, lubricants, and more. A well-stocked race shop is a winning race shop, and the path to winning begins with 3 letters, SRI. For more information, visit stockcarsteel.com or SRI-supplies.com. Check them both out on Facebook or call them toll-free at 1-888-752-7272, 1-888-752-7272.
My very first movie, it was called British Terabithia, and that was a film that a lot of kids loved.
From IamSecond.com.
It felt very cool in my heart to know that I did something nice.
Actress Bailey Madison.
I don't want it to be about me, I want it to be about God. Even though you have an earth father, he is your father, that you can say to him, God, I'm not feeling too well today. Or if it's just, little things like, I feel homesick, or I need you, Lord, I need to feel happiness in my heart. The most important thing is you have to have hope, you have to have faith. God is with you, and God is with you every step of the way. If you give yourself to God and you say, I'm ready to commit myself to you, you will know that God is watching you. He looks out and he goes, I'm very, very happy with what you just did. My name is Bailey Madison, and I am second.
I'm Jacob Seelman.
And I'm Tom Baker,
You're listening to Speed77 Radio.
powered by Race Chaser Online.
We are your home for motorsports. Welcome back to Motorsports Madness here on Speed77 Radio and Race Chaser Online. Jacob Seelman, Tom Baker, and James Pike around the round table as we discuss all the latest news and interviews from around the world of motorsports. And Tom, before we dive full sail into some open-wheel news with our own wine and cheeser, Joel Sebastianelli. One of the drivers that's going to come up in this segment is one of Andretti Autosports drivers who is getting ready to embark on his sophomore season in the series in the form of 19-year-old Zach Veach. Zach had a little bit of an up-and-down season last year with Andretti Autosport. They were ready and primed to contend for the championship. Unfortunately, their quest got derailed a little bit by some early mechanical troubles for the first 3 races of the season and really took them out of contention before they had a chance to get started. But Zach, a very outstanding young talent in the Indy Lights Series and very poised to make a run at this 2014 championship. Not just on track, but doing a lot of work off track as well.
Yeah, Zach really is a consummate. If you were designing what you would want to be the perfect image for a young up-and-coming racer who has everything it takes to be a future star, it would look like Zach Veach. Zach didn't start racing until he was 12, from small-town Ohio. He's small in stature. I mean, he's this kind of bubbly, little kid who's now all of a sudden grown up in front of us over the last 5 or 6 years. But then you read his bio and you just get this whole other portrait. This is a young man who's incredibly intelligent, who's incredibly articulate, and who really understands the need to give back, and he feels passionate about causes, and he doesn't just sit on the sidelines and talk about causes. He gets busy and does things. And when you've invented an app, written a book for teenagers, and you've dealt with so many causes, anti-bullying, staying in school, those types of things. I mean, this is just a young man with a tremendous future, and it's good to see that he is finally putting things together on the track. Last year was not the year that Zach or the team hoped for, and I think that you'll hear when we listen to the interview with Zach, I think that you'll hear that he takes some responsibility for that, but also, of course, they had the mechanical failures, and those things happen. That's just bad luck. But Zach was determined going into this season to do everything he possibly could within his control to turn things around and change their fortune. And I know that it's not a huge deal to win winter testing. You don't really get paid much for that. But the idea being that it's been a tremendous confidence boost for him, and it's kind of a little bit of indication, I think, too, to say, you know what, okay, we knew we could run this well. We knew it was here. We just had to put everything together. So I'm really excited for Zach, and also for Matthew Brabham, who we will talk with later in the show, coming up into the Indy Lights series. I think those two are going to be a lot of fun to watch this year. And Matthew certainly gives a lot of credit to Zach in his interview. So I think that the fans are going to enjoy them both a lot when they come by here on the show this evening.
Agreed, and I want to turn to Joel Sebastianelli just before we hear from Zach. And Joel, I know you as an avid IndyCar and watching some of the Indy Lights action as well in 2013, watched the struggles that Zach and that whole Andretti Autosport operation went through in Lights. Didn't see those kind of struggles so much on the IndyCar side of things, but that Lights program did have its speed bumps in 2013. I'm curious to hear what you think after seeing a little bit of the winter testing results and seeing how that team grew at the end of 2013, what you think Veach's championship chances are for 2014 with the different landscape that we're going to be looking at in Indy Lights.
Well, last year it was all about Schmidt-Peterson Motorsports, but heading into this year, I think that there's a little bit of a shift. I would expect more things from Andretti. It wasn't necessarily a bad year all around for Andretti. Like you said, in the Eyes Out IndyCar series, they were a strong competitor week in and week out, and Carlos Munoz performed very well in Indy Lights, actually picked up 4 victories. Zach had a little bit of trouble at times. There were also some bright spots. Milwaukee was a great race. I think the tires went away a little bit at the end after leading more than half of that event. Were definitely bright spots and things for Zach, a guy who's very, very young. It's the thing you've got to remember about all these guys. You've got Zach Veach, who's just 19 years old. You've got Sage Karam, Gabby Chavez. You have all of these young guys, many of whom haven't been at an elite level of motorsports. If you want to consider Indy Lights elite, they haven't quite been at this level for very long at all. Matthew Brabham coming up, he's been great in Pro Mazda, but now he's moving up to Indy Lights, and that's a whole nother animal too. So the whole point of this is that it's a developmental series, and these guys, you can't ever forget that, you know, they're not like the Indy guys. There's no real stagnant progress here. They're all getting better and better as the seasons go on.
And there's not much of a truer statement in the developmental levels than that. And as we get set to roll here and hear from Zach Veach, Tom, I know the fans are in for a treat here because you and Zach actually got into it just a little bit, had some fun in this interview, but Zach's got high expectations for 2014. Let's hear him.
Talking with Zach Veach, driver in the Indy Lights series for Andretti Autosport in the Replay XD machine. And Zach, first of all, you have had a very spectacular winter testing season, and I know that just has to be a huge confidence boost going into 2014 after what turned out to be not the season you wanted in 13.
Yeah, well, first of all, thanks for having me on, Tom. I really appreciate it. And yeah, I mean, you know, testing is testing. You don't really get too big of a medal if you win practice, but, you know, it definitely is what you said, and it is a confidence boost. We've been, you know, at Barber and Sebring, and we've been able to be P1 pretty much every time. So, you know, for me to be able to kind of take everything that we learned from last season, including what my engineer learned, we're kind of just putting it together right now, and everything's kind of really flowing with us. I mean, we have a lot of new guys in the series too, but I mean, even Gabby Chavez, who raced with me in this past season, he's been at the testing as well, and you know, him and I have been kind of leading the Lights field, but we've just been able to come out a little more on top right now.
How is the Indy Lights series looking in general, Zach? I mean, obviously under new management now, and I know that there's a lot of optimism, and I was real impressed last year with the level of talent, just not so much the numbers per se. Is that looking like it's going to be trending up as we go into 2014? We may see more teams getting involved in that series?
Oh, definitely. I mean, you know, Dan Anderson with Anderson Promotions, he took over the series, and you know, he originally came into the Mazda Road to Indy by owning USF 2000 series. So then he claimed what is now Pro Mazda and now Indy Lights. So he's done a great job getting the cars in, and one of the things is we've gotten a lot more foreign drivers this season than we did last. I mean, a lot of new foreign drivers, I should say. So we got a couple guys that raced in GP2. You know, we had an Auto GP champion testing with us. So, you know, there's a lot more guys that are being involved with it. And, you know, yeah, you said we didn't have the numbers last season that we wanted to, but it was definitely a tough field. But I feel, you know, some of kind of our overseas viewers really didn't think that because, you know, it's kind of a different different type of deal over here. So now that we're getting these foreign guys come in, I think it's really going to showcase the talent that we have over here in America.
Oh, I agree, and I think having obviously drivers like yourself, who basically from small town Ohio, so to speak, lends a credibility to it on the American side, and as you say, with a foreign influence now, it'll be more of a worldwide recognition and a balance that I hope will lead to even bigger and better things for the IndyCar series as a whole. But you talked about last season a little bit, and I know that it wasn't the year you were hoping for, but it seemed to get gradually better as the year went on, as if you kind of figured some things out toward the end of the season that may have been just kind of nagging you in the beginning part.
Yeah, I mean, for sure. It just seemed like, every weekend we had a kind of specific list of what we wanted to work on. And, the thing is, we were able to hit these details, but one of my things was, too, is just, one thing that's helped me so much in this winter testing is just I've put on a lot more weight. I've finally just getting kind of to an age of development that I guess I wasn't at before, because, now I've been working heavily with a nutritionist, and, I'm eating like 6,000 calories a day, because before I was only about 3% body fat. So the big thing was I'd get in these races in the first 20 minutes, 30 minutes, I felt perfectly fine, but just for some reason, just endurance-wise, wasn't as good as the other guys. So now that we're starting to get that figured out, it's allowed me to be a lot more kind of keep my head in the game a lot longer and being a lot more precise as I get tired. So I think that's been the biggest difference. Is just we've got a little bigger, and I think just a little stronger to handle the car as well.
I see you've got a little bit more weight up top too. You grew your hair out a little bit.
Oh yeah, we're looking for any change that we can here. So
every ounce
since I was about 3 years old. So I figured, being 18, 19, it was time to change it up.
Every ounce of extra weight you can put on is so much the better right now, I guess, right?
Oh, I'm trying. I was kind of going for that Dario Franchitti look, but I don't think I can pull it off. So I'm going to stay where I am for a little bit.
I got to ask you, too. I know that you were going to take part in Andretti Autosports' little No Shave November contest. I didn't see anything on your Facebook page. That either means you weren't able to grow anything or what you grew didn't look good. Which was it?
What do you think, Tom?
Well, could have been either. I'm going to vote it didn't grow enough to make a difference. How close am I?
Yeah, you're pretty spot on there. It was 4.5 weeks. I started a week early before anybody else. So I was like, well, I should get a little bit of a head start. Yeah, no. Maybe if the sun hit me just right, you could see a little bit of buzz on my cheeks. But other than that, no. So I think that was kind of my race to lose at that point.
Well, there'll be a day that'll come when that'll all change, and then you'll be wishing you were back the way you are now. So try to just be thankful for that while you can.
Well, hey, we'll keep working at it. I mean, I'm just really excited, for this season. It's just so much has come together. I don't know if you've heard too much about what we have just developed with Andretti Autosport is something called Andretti TV. So, we're taking, from my sponsor, Replay XD Cameras, we're putting cameras all over the shop. And everybody, the listeners, they can go to AndrettiTV.com. And we actually got a live feed of what's going on in the shop right now. So you can go through, all of that and, see, my mechanics working on my car, the IndyCar mechanics getting the Indy cars ready. So I think we're kind of revolutionizing how people are going to see open wheel racing in America.
That's really cool. I like that, and it serves the dual purpose of keeping the guys honest in the shop, I would suppose.
Oh, for sure. You wouldn't believe how much backlash I got from all the mechanics when I was like, hey, we're going to put cameras everywhere. So, the engineers loved it because they can see what they're doing now, but now the mechanics, not so much.
No secrets anymore.
Well, we got something for that, We can't give away everything right now.
That's right. Speaking of sponsors, I know you got several. You talked about Replay XD a little bit. Tell us a little bit more about that company, and then talk about some of your other sponsors as well.
Yeah, for sure. Well, Replay XD, we've been very, very good friends with the owner, John Spar, for since my first season in Mazda. And John, his family actually used to own B&M shifters, so he's been kind of a gearhead his entire life, and he just started building cameras for drag racing, and his big competitor, of course, is GoPro, but, Replay is designed for kind of like the motorsport side of things. So, they're full 1080p HD cameras, and, they're just made of the highest quality so they can withstand everything from, mountain bike riding to being on an Indy Lights car. So there's some great things, and, we just have a lot of other great partners as well, like, Sensei, the Cozy Data Backup, and, even Racing for Kids. That's kind of one of our charities that we're big into, and, it really does make a difference getting to go to these children's hospitals around the world, while we're around the country while we're racing, and, really get to make a difference in these kids' lives.
Yeah, you really do a lot of cause-related work, and I know that on your website, which, by the way, I love the new look on the site, ZachVeach.com, there's a lot of information on there about your past and present work with various causes, anti-bullying, and some of the causes like that. What can you tell us about what you're focused on for 2014 with relation to all of that?
Yeah, well, a lot of the same thing. The anti-texting while driving and anti-bullying, that's a problem that's going to take a lot of years to help, get to end. So, we're definitely putting more effort into that, working with, the AT&T It Can Wait campaign and the Great American Noble Challenge, trying to put an end to bullying. So, just focusing a lot more on that. I graduated back in April, so, this is the first kind of off-season that I've had where racing's really been 100% my main focus. So, it's been kind of an eye-opening experience of just getting even deeper into the background side of it and, making things happen on my own now. So, I think we're just going to keep digging. We're still hungry, and hopefully we'll make some great moments like we did this year, like being on Larry King.
Yeah, that was pretty spectacular. What was that like to be able to be interviewed by really one of the most, famous media icons probably in modern history? I know he was real impressed with you. You could tell by the interview.
Well, of course, I was a little nervous thinking, hey, I had to talk with Larry King, but as I got onto it, it's like talking to your grandfather. He was a really nice guy, and, he gave me a little bit, about having a crush on Danica Patrick, but, I was younger in those days, so it's understandable, and, it was a good experience to get on the show and actually just talk about everything we did, and, what Larry King has done for so many people is amazing. It's probably, goes right next to this as being one of my favorite interviews, so.
You definitely wouldn't want to admit to having a crush on Danica now. Ricky Stenhouse will come over there and bully you.
Oh, I know, right? They do it a little different in the NASCAR world, but, if he wants to race, let's go.
That's right. Yeah, well, strap Ricky. I think Ricky loved to get in one of those Indy Lights cars, and I actually think he'd be good at it, too.
Well, for sure.
Zach, it's always a ball to talk with you, and you're just a great role model for others your age, and a willing one, which is even nicer. And I know you've got your website, ZachVeach.com, for anyone who wants to learn more about you. What other ways can fans follow you during the season? Andretti TV, obviously, is a big part of that now.
AndrettiTV.com is going to get a lot bigger as we get further into the season. And, of course, Twitter and Facebook at Zach Beach. And we try to keep it simple. You can follow me on there. And just keep up with us as we're getting ready for the 2014 season. And I hope to see some of you actually out on the track. So it's going to be a great year for, I think, all of us at Andretti Autosport. So I'm definitely pumped.
It should be a lot of fun. Well, congratulations on all of your successes to this point, and even more so, thank you for all of the work that you do for so many other young folks through your various causes. We wish you the best of luck for safe and successful racing, you and the whole Andretti Autosport team this year, and I'm sure we'll be back in touch again very soon.
No, thank you, Tom. It's always a real pleasure coming on your show and getting to talk with you, Out of everybody I've worked with, interview-wise, I think you've been one of my long-lasting friends in this whole kind of deal. So I want to thank you for having me involved all the time, and looking forward to talking to you again real soon as well.
Thanks, man, and we'll certainly make it happen. That's Zach Veach, and we have got more of the show coming up. You are listening to Motorsports Madness on Speed77 Radio and Race Chaser Online. We'll be right back after these words. For 17 years, Stock Car Steel has been a leading materials supplier to the racing industry. We're proud they're a motorsports content partner here at Race Chaser Online. The biggest names in NASCAR trust Stock Car Steel for raw materials such as carbon steel, chrome moly, DOM, aluminum, plastics, and much more. You can't build a race car without the basic materials, and Stock Car Steel is the place to get them. Don't forget to also visit Stock Car Steel's sister company, SRI Supplies, for racing and industry. SRI is the place to go for all your shop supply needs. Nuts, bolts, rivets, tapes, adhesives, cutting tools, chemicals, body shop supplies, paint shop supplies, lubricants, and more. A well-stocked race shop is a winning race shop, and the path to winning begins with 3 letters, SRI. For more information, visit stockcarsteel.com or SRI-supplies.com. Check them both out on Facebook or call them toll-free at 1-888-752-7272, 1-888-752-7272.
All I wanted to do was just pick up a guitar and sing praise songs.
From IamSecond.com.
Well, when I got to 17, I was playing in after-hours bars, just in a bunch of trouble.
Grammy Award winner Michael W. Smith.
Smoking that first joint and feeling so guilty about it. From there, it was LSD, and your compass sort of just like disappeared. I knew where I belonged. I just couldn't get out. I was very depressed. I went on the floor and just began to shake. And I was just weeping. I was weeping. And I just began to just cry out for God. 12:30 at night, on the linoleum floor of my kitchen, the God of the universe came and wept with me on that floor. I know where my hope lies. It's not being a rock star. I'm a son of the High King of the universe.
Watch Michael's story at IamSecond.com.
I'm Jacob Seelman.
And I'm Tom Baker.
You're listening to Speed77 Radio,
Powered by Race Chaser Online.
We are your home for motorsports. I'm going to have to remember I forgot I was amazing for later on in the week. I'm going to have to use that one against our own Tom Baker for that one. Welcome back to Motorsports Madness here on Speed77 Radio and Race Chaser Online. Jacob Seelman, James Pike, the aforementioned Tom Baker, and Joel Sebastianelli around the round table as we're delving into the open wheel world, and just got done listening to an outstanding interview with young Zach Veach out of the Andretti Autosport stable. And Tom, just before the break, you and I were talking about all the progress Zach made towards the end of the 2013 season, and just seeing a lot out of him, and certainly a lot of good things to look forward to come 2014 as well.
Yeah, I definitely would see a tremendous amount of progress. I certainly would see Zach sitting in victory lane early and often in this series. And, you know, I wanted to make the point. Joel actually brought up a really interesting and I think important point about these Indy Lights drivers. Most of these drivers, you know, are 17, 18, 19, 20 years old. You know, these are kids. We forget sometimes that, you know, we see these drivers out on the racetrack and they do such terrific media work and all of that, and they seem so mature, but we forget these are kids. And so these are kids who accomplish quite a lot, and every one of them has an individual story, and Zach's story is certainly a tremendous one. Matthew Brabham, we'll hear from in a few minutes, also has a very unique story and things that he's had to adjust and adapt to in coming from Australia to America and being here now and racing with Andretti. And he'll talk about some of that. It's amazing what some of these kids accomplish, and it's amazing what they get done. Not just those guys, but you look at drivers like Joey Gase, the Nationwide Series, who we had on the Stock Car Steel show last Thursday, and you know his story with his mom passing away, and all of the organ donation story that surrounds him. So much great work that he's doing for his sponsor, Donate Life. It's drivers like that, and you look and you say, my gosh, these are just kids, and yet they're setting tremendous examples, not just for other kids their age and younger, but also for us too. So you really got to take your hat off these young racers just to look at what they've accomplished and what they're doing at such a young age.
How true it is, and want to welcome Joel Sebastianelli back into the conversation. He's here with us around the round table. And Joel, before we get into our second Indy Lights interview of the night with Matthew Brabham, want to talk a little bit about some of the F1 news of the day, because we've seen several now of the car designs for Formula One roll out onto the internet via the teams over the past couple of days, and certainly a lot of different innovation, a lot of different looks for 2014 because of all the rules changes, and you've been interestingly outspoken about some of the designs. Talk a little bit about your thoughts on the 2014 car designs.
Well, if I had to sum them all up in one word, I guess it wouldn't necessarily be a word, it would just be the noise. Ugh. Ugly looking cars. Due to the new regulations, these cars are a lot lower, particularly in the front. And what you'll notice on really any of these, the only one that doesn't seem to have nearly as big a drop, the new Sauber C33 doesn't seem to have it too much, and the VJM07 for Sahara Force India, both of those look a little bit better than their counterparts. But the effect on the nose is that they just droop all the way down to the ground for the sake of being aesthetically pleasing. If they have Viagra for automobiles, it would certainly help if they popped a couple tablets and raised those things back up, because it looks terrible. To see it on the track, maybe we'll get over it. If you go back to 2007, there were a lot of cars at the time, in particular the Sauber. The new BMW just looked awful. Very, very wide, a lot of curves on it. Didn't look like a traditional F1 automobile. And sooner or later, even some of us now think they look good. I certainly don't think that the two-prong nose that the Lotus E22 has, or the finger nose that the new FW36 Williams has, I don't think either of those look particularly good. But maybe at some point, a little bit further down the road, we're definitely going to get used to those. We'll acclimate to them being on the track, and maybe as the years go on, we'll actually look back with some fond memories on those. But right now, they're just very ugly in concept and don't look very good on the track to me.
If they had Viagra for automobiles, you would think that they probably could pop a couple. Gotta love Joel Sebastianelli, ladies and gentlemen. Just absolutely the quote of the night.
Oh, that's more than the quote of the night. I think that's the quote of the year so far here on Motorsports Madness. Joel, another note on the Formula One world getting set for 2014, although I don't know how you can top that, was the completion of the grid for 2014. Caterham announcing their 2 drivers for 2014 to fill out the 22 cars and stars who will take to the track in just a couple weeks' time as we get set for the season opening Australian Grand Prix. Any surprises from the Caterham announcement, or was this more something that you were expecting?
Well, some people were surprised by the new Swede, Marcus Ericsson. I personally wasn't. There were some rumors about that. He's a young guy, just 23 years old, has a good record in GP2, and is one of the younger drivers coming up who, yes, he does come from money, but he certainly has a lot of potential. The one that surprised me was Kamui Kobayashi, and I am thrilled that Kobayashi is going to be making a return to F1. Now, if his theatrics on the track, being one of the most dramatic and aggressive drivers, if that doesn't entertain you and make you want to root for him enough, how about when you throw in this aspect? Ferrari offered him a contract to race, just a normal contract to race in their sports car program. He turned it down because he knows he's 27 years old and this might be his last shot at F1. You can't go more than a year, maybe 2 years tops without with any sort of chance of returning to Formula One. So he turned that down, and because he doesn't have a lot of funding, told Caterham he will drive for free. And he will. He is not getting paid to drive Formula One. He is going to drive for free. It's just a shame that he doesn't have a better car. Maybe with some of these new rules and the new engine, certainly switching to the V6 engines, maybe that'll make the field a little bit more even, but you certainly don't expect the Caterham Renault to really have too big an impact outside of the battle with Marussia and maybe a battle with Williams at some point lower down in the grid. They've still yet to score a point, as has Marussia. But to see Kamui Kobayashi back on the grid. It's great, and what a story he's got. I mean, you and I talked about this, Tom, actually, earlier. There are some guys, maybe back in the 70s, and in the early days of NASCAR, who drove for very little money, but to drive for free like at this level, at the world-class stage in the Formula One World Championship, it's unbelievable. I know we're not supposed to pick favorites, but it's pretty hard for anyone, and I think most of them will admit we'll be rooting for Kamui Kobayashi in some way or another throughout the season.
Well, it is remarkable, and I'm sure that there's some, when you say he's driving for free, you and I talked about this before, I'm sure there's got to be some sort of a percentage of the winnings arrangement. I would be surprised if he was getting paid absolutely nothing to race the car, but certainly this is a driver who is desperately trying to hang on to a dream, and you got to respect that, and you got to really admire that somebody's willing to go to that level. And you're right, it is unfortunate it isn't better equipment, but you know what, maybe if he overachieves, perhaps there's a chance that at some point someone else with one of the better teams may look at him a little differently and say, you know what, maybe we need to give this guy a chance.
Definitely. He was so strong at Sauber in Formula One. I mean, how can you forget? He put the Sauber on the podium. And that was right. Not necessarily an easy thing to do. Him and Sergio Perez were both very strong, and side by side, Sergio Perez certainly had more backing in sponsorship, and ultimately I believe that's what made the difference, because when you compare the two of them, and I don't think that Sergio got a great deal at McLaren. I think he should have stayed one more year, and I'm certainly not putting Sergio Perez down, but if you gave me Kamui Kobayashi and Sergio Perez side by side and money was not a factor, I would take Kamui Kobayashi to drive for the top flight F1 team every single time.
Alrighty there, and there's the debate continuing, and I'm sure we'll be continuing all the way down to the first race in Australia. Joel, I know it was a shock to me to not see Sergio Perez on the grid for 2014. Based on anything you've heard, do we have any updates as to where Chico will be in 2014?
Well, Checo's actually going to be driving alongside Nico Hülkenberg at Force India, which I think is a pretty good match for him. First of all, he's in the best-looking Formula One car on the grid. Still not a fan of the nose, but Force India was the first team to release their livery for 2014, and my goodness, it's gorgeous. Beautiful car, a mix of green, black, orange. It's going to be tough to miss that one on the track. Sergio Perez didn't get a great deal at McLaren. I know that he needed to perform, and he wasn't performing quite up to the McLaren standard, but neither was anybody else, and it didn't have all that much to do with Jenson Button or with Sergio Perez. It had to do with the fact that they were just driving and really just a terrible car. I don't know. I can't think, really looking back. We thought Ferrari was going to struggle a couple years ago, and they turned out all right. I can't think of any recent example that parallels McLaren. I was thinking about it a little bit earlier today and thinking about it now, and I still can't provide a great example. But this is a team with all the funding in the world. They should be top flight, and somehow last year they just missed the mark horribly, and these last couple years they've been missing the mark, although not necessarily as dramatic. The time is now for McLaren to step up. They've now got Eric Boullier joining the ranks. Martin Whitmarsh expected to be phased out. Leaves are turning at McLaren, and there's going to be a real dark cloud over that program heading into this year that's going to get a lot darker if they don't perform again, because they've been slipping little by little every single year for the past 5 years or so.
All right, Tom, you know what? That moment right there, that's called brain fade, and you would be right here telling me that, no, you're not supposed to be doing that. You don't do that until you get old, and you are not old. And this is not the part where I say that you are either, but it's one of those moments of, what? Really?
I have absolutely no idea what you're talking about, Jacob.
Of course you don't, but Anyway, with that, we're going to step here at the top of the hour to commercial. When we come back, we're going to move to the last of our open wheel news and interviews. We're going to sit down for an exclusive bit with Matthew Brabham moving up for his rookie season in the Indy Lights division for Andretti Autosport. That's coming up when we come back. You're listening to Speed77 Radio, powered by Race Chaser Online, and we are your home for motorsports.
Let me drive How do you know when it's time to give up the keys? When your dog grabs your keys from your lap and your lap is on the floor. Yep, it's Jeff Foxworthy Parade saying, when you party, be sure to designate before you celebrate.
If you want to make it home alive, let me drive.
A public service announcement brought to you by the U.S. Department of Transportation, RAD, the National Association of Broadcasters, and the Ad Council.
Please don't drink and drive. It's not fun.
I'm Jacob Seelman.
And I'm Tom Baker.
You're listening to Speed77 Radio,
powered by Race Chaser Online.
We are your home for motorsports. Welcome back to Speed77 Radio and Race Chaser Online, and an extended edition tonight of Motorsports Madness, where we talk all the latest news and interviews from around all disciplines of motorsports. Jacob Seelman, James Pike, Tom Baker, here at the hosts' round table, joined by Joel Sebastianelli for all the open wheel news and interviews that we've had over the past little while this evening. And Tom, as we move into our final interview of the night, getting ready to hear from another Andretti Autosport rising talent, Matthew Brabham, moving up into the Indy Lights for his rookie season this year after winning the Pro Mazda Championship last year for Andretti Autosport. And this is another young driver. He's got the lineage in open wheel racing, the grandson of Sir Jack Brabham, who was a former Formula One world champion, if I can English correctly here tonight, and certainly his father, Jeff Brabham, doing a lot in open wheel racing in his own right. So this is a young driver who many would look at as one with a lot to prove, but he doesn't necessarily look at it that way. In fact, his outlook going into this season, very upbeat, very positive, and a lot of confidence from this young man going into 2014.
You know, he really is confident, but not to the point of being overconfident. I think he just really believes that the winter testing really gave them a chance to get used to things and gave him an opportunity to start to make the adjustment from the Pro Mazda to the Indy Light car. And, you know, he just has a really relaxed attitude, everything, and so I really think it'll be a good first season, and certainly he's capable of it, and he's talented enough, and I was really impressed with Matthew in the interview. Just a very respectful, very well-mannered young man, and well-spoken as well, with, as I said earlier, quite a story about transitioning from location to location. And let's just go ahead and roll the tape and check out Matthew Brabham's interview here, and let's listen to what he had to say.
Talking with Andretti Autosport Indy Lights racer Matthew Brabham today. First of all, Matthew, congratulations on your elevation, if you will, or promotion from the Pro Mazda series within Andretti Autosport up to the Indy Lights car. Talk a little bit, first of all, about how the winter testing has gone for you. We've spoken with Zach Veach. Things went really well for him, and it seems like you did very well yourself adapting to the difference between the two cars.
Yeah, well, thank you very much. Yeah, it's great to be on the show. But yeah, so far testing's been going great for us. Especially the Andretti team as a whole. I worked with most of the guys last year for the first time, and last year was amazing for me. And we all got along so well. And I've known Zach obviously from last year as well, kind of being teammates in the same under the same umbrella, I guess, even though he was in Indy Lights. And yeah, he's a really great kid, and we really get along well. So I think the team's going to be really strong this year. We've shown great pace, but you never know until you get to the first race. So I think just keeping an open mind is going to be the best option for us, and just keep working hard at it. And yeah, I think we'll be pretty strong this year. It's going to be a good year.
Now, you progressed up the Mazda Road to Indy ladder very well from USF 2000 in 2012 to Pro Mazda last year, and now, of course, Indy Lights this year. You've had about 17 wins in the last 2 years between the USF 2000 and the Pro Mazda series. For those who aren't really familiar with the specific cars in each of those series, can you talk just very generically about some of the differences between the cars that you've had to progress through each year and right up to now with the Indy Lights cars? What has the adjustment been like for you as a racer?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's a great series. I think it's definitely one of the best, ladder series in the world at the moment, and one of the most competitive for sure. But the cars are great. I mean, I've had so much fun driving them over the last couple of years I've been here. But USF 2000 is basically the same as a Formula Ford, but just with wings and slicks. And it's a pretty generic, open wheel kind of car that you kind of look at, stepping out of go-karts to step straight into, and it teaches you the basics. And I mean, every step up throughout the whole ladder is just you always get a little bit more power and a little bit more grip, and you kind of have to learn to deal with that a little bit as you keep going up. And I think the ladder system is spaced out perfectly for me. I mean, it's been great. USF 2000, then you step up into Pro Mazda, get a little bit more power and a little bit more grip, and it's a couple of seconds quicker. But if you look at the time differences the whole way up, each series is a few seconds quicker than the next, and it kind of brings a steady path all the way up to IndyCar. And a lot of the Indy Lights drivers seem to be doing pretty good in IndyCar as well. And most of the IndyCar guys came from Indy Lights, so I think throughout the whole ladder system it's pretty good. But I mean, it's been tough for me. I mean, I'm still getting to grips with the Indy Lights car, and it's definitely the biggest thing for me this year for me is the weight. Last year it was the power, getting used to more power, but I think this year the biggest challenge is going to be getting used to the weight of the car. It definitely weighs a lot more, and it definitely feels a lot different to drive than what I'm used to.
Speaking of last year in the Pro Mazda series, you won the championship. You won the Rookie of the Year award. You had 13 feature wins, including 7 in a row, 15 podiums, 10 poles, 13 fastest race laps, and you led 349 out of your 432 laps, which is 81% of all the possible laps you could have led. You led. You really weren't much into sharing with the competition, were you?
Well, I mean, it's definitely a great year. I mean, I can't complain for sure. I mean, that was really awesome. But I think it's just one of those years that I was just trying to enjoy it while it lasted. I don't think that's ever going to happen really again. I mean, we can only hope, but it's those years are very, very, very rare. And I think just all the small things fell into place for me, and I can't really think of anything that was out of place, or everything was perfect for us throughout the whole year almost. And I mean, the team, the Andretti Autosport guys were just wonderful. They did such a great job, and they knew everything, all the jobs they needed to do. They didn't even have to think about doing it. Just all clicked over, and everything was just it was just crazy. And it's definitely a lot of fun when you're winning, that's for sure.
We have a pretty strong open-wheel fan base here on Speed77 Radio and Race Chaser Online. I know that there's an awful lot of our listeners who will be familiar with your dad, Jeff Brabham. It's been a while for your dad. How much has he been able to contribute to your knowledge base with the cars that you've been driving up to now? Obviously, his racing experience is vast, but the technology has changed a lot, etc. How much is he able to contribute, and what's it like for you to be able to be a part of that family history?
Oh, it's absolutely massive. I think, my dad really is a huge help, and has helped me out, throughout my whole life in racing. And, I couldn't really see where I'd be without him or, with my family. It's, there's such a huge help to have, such a deep, knowledge pool to kind of pull from. And, he's great. I mean, I guess I have to admit, though, it's kind of like you get that, being a teenager, you get that kind of that trend of just not wanting to not listen to your dad. So there's sometimes where I kind of have to step back and realize, hang on, I think my dad actually knows what he's talking about here, and I kind of probably should listen to him. And so we've had a few headbutts, getting there here and there, but we get along really, really great, and he absolutely loves watching me race, and it's and we get along great, especially around the racetrack and everything. So it's huge. But think just growing up and listening to all the stories and being involved in a racing environment, my whole entire life has just really helped over the last couple of years of racing here in the States. And Dad's raced a lot of the tracks here and knows a lot of IndyCar guys, and he's been a huge help. And he does try and step back and kind of let me learn things on my own. But I think it's just been a huge help, and it's definitely an advantage for me.
Talk a little bit about, I noticed in your bio, your racing hero is Valentino Rossi, which was kind of interesting. First, that you didn't say your dad, but second of all, that you would choose Valentino. Talk a little bit about what it is that makes him your hero. What are the characteristics, the accomplishments? What is it about Valentino Rossi that you look up to so much?
Well, I guess, I kind of explained that a little bit, but my enjoyment out of, racing isn't driving the cars at all. It's just competing against other people and beating them, and that's my passion. And whether it be any sort of racing, as long as there's good races and they really kind of show great skills in competing against other people, and that's like what I really idolize. And I kind of grew up with my dad. We were kind of big MotoGP fans, just watching the motorbikes race, just purely for the sole fact that they put on such good races and the competition, and it was just awesome to watch. And so I just grew up watching Valentino Rossi, and I guess he became my idol because he just, like some of the races I've seen from him and like competing, he's just amazing, and he's just really awesome to watch. And he's I guess that's kind of how he became my hero. It's just his will to win and his attitude, refusing to lose. So I guess that's why he's my hero.
Well, Matthew, it looks like off the track you're pretty active as far as the things that you list as your hobbies. Is there anything in particular about yourself that you think it would be cool for our audience to know about you?
That's kind of a tough question, I guess. But at the moment, for the last couple of years, I've just moved straight out of high school from Australia and come over on my own, basically, and started racing in a country that I'm not too familiar with, even though I was born here. So I guess that's been a tough learning curve, and I'm trying to find new things to do here and keep myself entertained, because I kind of grew up on the beach in Australia, going surfing and boogie boarding. So those are my hobbies, and all my friends and I just did that every weekend. So I guess it's been I've been trying to find a new hobby while I've been here, but it's definitely put me out of my comfort zone a little bit.
Well, they say that as a coach, I would tell you that if you're not out of your comfort zone, you're not growing. So that would be certainly a situation where I think you'll grow from this experience tremendously, and I'm sure you're already seeing that. And being a part of an organization such as Andretti Autosport, and I've talked with Zach about this numerous times, it just seems like Michael is so patient and really must be such an incredibly good teacher, along with everybody else in the organization, of course.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, if you have, Michael's been in the sport, for a long time, and he's seen it all kind of thing, and he really knows how to approach it the right way. And I guess I get that with my family a little bit as well. So, my dad and Michael were teammates once in IndyCar, so it's a little bit, I guess it's kind of cool now that I'm racing for him, and it's a little bit weird, I guess, but, it's cool and I enjoy it. And, I mean, the team is just amazing. Such great facilities here in Indy, and they've been a really big help for my career so far. And they're probably having the series and all the different ladders all the way up to IndyCar, is huge. And it seems like they're really trying to focus on developing drivers, and they're really supportive. And to have all those resources, at your fingertips, really helps. And it's cool to hang out with all the IndyCar guys and talk to them and watch them race, and it just kind of prepares you all that more for IndyCar when you finally make the step. But yeah, it's wonderful, and I'm just so pleased that I'm a part of such a great organization.
I know that you can't do this without corporate partners. Is there anybody that you'd like to talk a little bit about in terms of on the sponsorship side of things that we should be knowing about and understanding of the folks who help you out with your racing effort?
Yeah, for sure. I think Mazda has probably been, the biggest help so far. Having the Mazda Road to Indy and the scholarship program has been absolutely massive for me, and really helped us out while I've been over here, and I think it's the best ladder system in the world, right? And I strongly believe in that, and focus on developing drivers, not just kind of taking their money. So it's a great series, and also I'm really looking forward to this year as well with the United Fiber and Data people. They're sponsoring James Hinchcliffe this year in IndyCar, and they'll be sponsoring me. So to be a part of that group and the rock band live as well, it's just wonderful. And to be working with James and those guys is going to be a really great experience for me this year. I think I'm going to learn a lot, and I'm really looking forward to getting out there and racing and displaying some of those colors.
How can our fans follow your progress, follow your career, your website, Facebook, Twitter, anything that you'd like to plug?
Oh, yeah, for sure. I mean, Twitter's always a great one. My Twitter is @MattyBrabs. And, I'm on Facebook as well. And, my website is www.matthewbrabham.com.
Well, Matthew, we appreciate you taking some time to talk with us on the Motorsports Madness Show, and definitely wish you all of the best for a safe and successful 2014 season. Congratulations on making it to the precipice of the IndyCar Series. You're one step below, and I'm sure that that's got to be something that you are most excited about, is the possibility of actually racing in the Indy 500 one day very soon.
Yeah, that would be awesome. Thank you so much, and thanks for having me.
All right, Tom, before we go to our final commercial break here, want to tie up the open wheel side of our show tonight with a nice, pretty little bow, and first add my well wishes to Matthew Brabham as he embarks on his 2014 Indy Lights season, but also want to talk about some news out of the IndyCar world. And unfortunately, Joel had to duck out. He had some other obligations, but I know you and I certainly can hash this out for a minute or two. But out of the NASCAR Media Tour, yes, we're tying together NASCAR and IndyCar again. Imagine that, race fans. Out of the NASCAR Media Tour today, it was announced by Kurt Busch that it is about 70% certain right now, which, if we can do math, is better than half, that he will be racing in the 2014 Indianapolis 500. Boy, the potential of double duty all of a sudden is returning. It's been a while since we've been able to talk about double duty, Tom, and this one would definitely be an interesting discussion because of who it is. Certainly Kurt Busch poses a very interesting possibility of not just competing in both races, but contending in both races.
Well, here's the importance of this story, okay? And if there's anybody out there from IndyCar management that's listening to this show, I just want you to just stop what you're doing and huddle up real close to the computer here and just listen to this, because you see what this is here is this is a big deal for y'all, okay? Because last year you had probably the most exciting, incredible racing on the planet. Not just open wheel racing, but racing period on the planet. You were the best act in Major League Motorsports, and you had one of the most incredible Indy 500s ever, and nobody watched it. Now, see, what y'all need to do with this here is you need to do whatever it takes to make this happen, because this is a guy who is a polarizing figure in the NASCAR world. People either love Kurt Busch or they hate Kurt Busch. But you guys shouldn't care either way. You want all of them to be tuning in a little bit early. You want them sitting in their hotel rooms instead of going to Charlotte early that day. You want them watching that race. You want it on the big screen at Charlotte. You need to call up Daytona Beach and have a conference call with Brian France and anyone else that you need to in order to make the time work so that Kurt Busch can get to Indy, race in the 500, and get back for the Coca-Cola 600. You need more of Kurt Busch to go from NASCAR to Indy and back. You need some of your guys trying to run Charlotte. We need to open this back up again. because it's the only way the IndyCar ratings are ever going to be what they ought to be is if we start cross-pollinating once again for the 500 and bringing some guys over. You've got Danica sitting over there, who obviously has been with you many times before. You've got Kurt Busch, who shows an interest. You've got other drivers who've shown an interest, but with the time constraints, aren't able to do it. This is the perfect opportunity, Jacob, for these guys. And Kurt Busch could be a door opener here if only this could be worked out. I can only speculate that Haas Automation and possibly Monster Energy Drink could be a part of this and throw the 00 on the car and let's go see what we can do. I don't see Kurt being a contender to win the race, but I certainly could see him doing respectfully well, and I could see him bringing a lot of NASCAR fans to the Indy 500 broadcast, and that's what Indy needs. Is Indy needs for these people that normally just watch stock cars go round and round on Sundays, looking at the open wheel side of things again and realizing, hey, the racing's better over here than it is in NASCAR, and it's a whole lot more exciting to watch. And I think that this would be the perfect opener, and it would be great for NASCAR too, especially if we could get a couple of James Hinchcliffes or whomever to come over and race NASCAR a little bit. I think that the time is right to have some of this going on again in the sport.
Elio Castroneves. Elio Castroneves.
Of course.
Oh, it's going to be interesting. Isn't speculation fun? And I guarantee you, you want to talk about potential partners that could be behind this. I guarantee you Monster Energy is looking at this and licking their chops, Tom. And I know Kurt Busch has said multiple times that Andretti Autosport, of course, they keep popping up tonight too, don't they? Could be the potential.
There's a common theme.
I know it. There is. That Andretti Autosport is one of the two teams that he is looking at to go and run the race at Indianapolis 4. He said he's had an offer from one other team, but that if he could, he'd like to stick with that Andretti operation because he tested for them, and he says the relationship is very, very good over there. So it'll be interesting to see. But Kurt Busch in the Indy 500, I'd pay for a ticket to that one. And with that, we are going to take our final caution flag of the night. And when we come back, we're going to go into a little bit of overtime and close the show with some Northeast dirt track news. We've got our Northeast correspondent, Stephen Ovens, back in the house. That's coming up next. You're listening to Motorsports Madness on Speed77 Radio and Race Chaser Online. We are your home for motorsports.
For 17 years, Stock Car Steel has been a leading materials supplier to the racing industry. We're proud they're a motorsports content partner here at Race Chaser Online. The biggest names in NASCAR trust Stock Car Steel for raw materials such as carbon steel, chrome moly, DOM, aluminum, plastics, and much more. You can't build a race car without the basic materials, and Stock Car Steel is the place to get them. Don't forget to also visit Stock Car Steel's sister company, SRI Supplies, for racing and industry. SRI is the place to go for all your shop supply needs. Nuts, bolts, rivets, tapes, adhesives, cutting tools, chemicals, body shop supplies, paint shop supplies, lubricants, and more. A well-stocked race shop is a winning race shop, and the path to winning begins with 3 letters, SRI. For more information, visit stockcarsteel.com or SRI-supplies.com. Check them both out on Facebook or call them toll-free at 1-888-752-7272, 1-888-752-7272.
For every turn, a twist. For every start, an untimely finish. For every win, someone who loses it. For every number, a nation. For every celebration, a brawl. For every split second, years of work. For every heaven, a hell. For every good old boy, a good old girl. For every curse, a prayer. For every ounce of order, jug of chaos. For every twist, there's a turn.
I'm Jacob Seelman.
And I'm Tom Baker.
You're listening to Speed77 Radio,
Powered by Race Chaser Online.
We are your home for motorsports. Welcome back to Motorsports Madness, and look at this. We're going into a little bit of overtime. What? We got long-winded? What? Is that even a thing, James?
No, not us.
No, not really. I don't think it's much of a problem.
Well, we're going to go into our final segment. Again, a little bit of overtime, but overtime never hurt anybody, especially not in the motorsports world. And want to welcome back another one of our burgeoning correspondents to the studio here tonight to talk some Northeast dirt track news. Big welcome back to our colleague Stephen Ovens. Stephen, it's not been full year yet because we haven't had you on the show. There's not been a lot of dirt track news to talk about until now, but you've got some stuff back in the proverbial mailbox, and I know I'm glad to have you back with us tonight.
Well, I thank you guys for having us on. I've got Steven,
Clint,
Brad from the Turn 5 Racing Podcast joining you guys tonight.
And we're looking forward to it, my friend. Glad to have all of you with us tonight, and want to just open the conversation right up as we go to you guys in the Northeast. What have you got on the agenda tonight?
Well, what we just finished up our recording for this week, and we had a couple of guys that have made some big news in the local dirt track world up here in New York and some of Pennsylvania and some of New Jersey. We had Empire Super Sprints Vice President Dean Reynolds on the show tonight to talk to us about a show that's going to be running at the Utica Rome Speedway on Labor Day weekend, or the weekend after Labor Day weekend. 360 Sprint show, $10,000 to win, $500 to start. Another gem out of the Gene Cole camp at the Utica Rome Speedway. And Clint, we're really excited to try and make our way out to that event.
Yeah, since doing the show, we've put some dates on our schedule, and that's definitely one of them. Probably one of the biggest sprint car shows in the Northeast. And since the Bully Hill Nationals at Black Rock Speedway in the late '90s, early 2000s, so yeah, we're really looking forward to that.
And the other thing that we talked about with the Empire Super Sprints was the return of their CNY Speed Week, which is essentially comparable to Daytona Speed Week, except for 360 sprint cars up here in the Northeast. And they make trips, I believe they run either 5 out of 7 nights. They run Brewerton, Fulton, Utica Rome, the Can-Am Motorsports Park.
Rolling Wheels,
which is a gem on the dirt tour. So a lot of exciting things.
And I know certainly for dirt track fans all over the Northeast, the return of CNY Speed Week going to make the racing life very eventful, and certainly hope a lot of fans turn out for it. I know another piece of news that you've been looking on here recently is a little bit, and I know you're going to have some more of it for RaceChaserOnline.com as well, on Jessica Zemkin. I know you've got some news on her that just came out recently.
Yeah, they had announced here a little while ago about the fact that she was going to be running a full year at Oswego Speedway in a super modified, which is certainly different than what we're used to seeing her run in the 360 and the 410 dirt sprint car. We were able to have her as a guest on our show last week out at Lighthouse Lanes up there in Oswego, New York, and something that struck me and really made me want to write an article about it was the fact that she's coming to Oswego. She knows she has a lot to learn. She knows she's going to be in a good equipment, and she's coming and she has an expectation of winning. When she said that to us, Clint, I was blown away that even for a rookie season, the goal of winning, and anybody gets into racing to win, but to make the change to the super modified and set a goal of winning a race, I mean, that was, Tom, your experience with Oswego, I just thought, wow, she's really gung-ho and really ready to do this thing.
Well, I mean, she's good equipment. Question that she's going to have a car that is capable of winning, and I think that's that's going to put her in a position where really she just needs to continue to grow into the car and really be able to to learn to race the car over 45 or 50 laps or whatever the race distance is. But I have no doubt that she's more than capable of winning a race at Oswego in that car, and I would actually expect her to win a race in that car. She's a very talented racer, and a lot of people are saying, well, it's tough to just come into Oswego and win. Well, that's true. But, she is as capable of doing that as anybody else would be coming into the same situation and the same equipment. And I wish her all the luck in the world. I think it's great that she's racing every week there. And I know that it was something that Corpac really wanted. And, I've had some people kind of question me as if, well, why would she do this? Well, a lot of people aren't familiar with the super modified, Steve, but the fact of the matter is they're the fastest short track cars on the planet, and it's terrific driving experience to be able to go to Oswego in an unwinged super and compete there. And I think this would be a real feather in her cap if she could prove that she can beat the best in that division on the fast 5/8 of a mile.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And you talk about how fast those guys are up at the Steel Palace. The first exposure I ever had to super modifieds at Oswego, I was on the film crew working with the TV crew up there, and they put me on the inside of turn 2 on a 1-level scaffolding. And the first time Greg Furlong and Otto Sitterly came through there, I thought they were going to blow the scaffolding down. My pant legs just shook from how quick and how loud those cars are, and it's just a fascinating thing to watch. It was really a pleasure to get to do that show at Lighthouse Lanes last week, and we want to thank Danny Kay and Tom and the Hofer family from Lighthouse for having us out there, because we really got to talk to some cool drivers, and looking forward to the season out there. Clint, another thing that we talked about just tonight was with the promoter Brett Dale, talking about the short track super series.
Yeah, Brett Dale is probably the guy in the Northeast when it comes to promoting. They March 23rd they have the Hard Clay Nationals now at Orange County Fair Speedway. It's a $30,000 purse.
Yeah, for the dirt modifieds.
Yeah, for the Northeast dirt modifieds, $30,000 purse. It's $10,000 to win. I think I can't remember the number right off the top of my head, but the money contingencies for the 50 laps of the race, and you don't have to be leading. This guy is it. This guy can put money in a racer's pocket.
Bringing new ideas as well. The qualifying format for that show is going to be, they're going to qualify on passing points, which is something that you see often with the sprint cars and some other series out in the Midwest. Not something that we're accustomed to seeing here with the dirt modifieds. They're also going to put sail panels on the modifieds. There's different weight restrictions for if you're bringing a big block or if you're bringing a small block. So going to be a really great show out there. And the way that I've heard the best was, there's some people that are skeptical about using the passing points to qualify. But if you think about it, Orange County Fair Speedway tends to get dry, get slick, and think about the passing points. If you start 10th in your heat at Orange County and you finish second, you deserve to have a good starting spot in the feature. So going to be a really exciting show out there as well.
In the immortal words of Tom Baker, yay passing points.
Exactly.
Absolutely. Going to be a great show out there. And when we talked to Brett tonight, we were also able to debut the fact that coming up on race number 2 of their short track super series, the Turn 5 podcast is going to be sponsoring the Hard Charger Award for the Sportsman division out there at Thunder Mountain Speedway. That race is going to be taking place in May. Going to be a big show out there for those guys. And we were all talking promotion getting ready for the 2014 race season. As far as other things that have been happening, we certainly saw the coverage that the King, Steve Kinzer, got today out at the start of NASCAR Media Week, and looking forward to one last run for the King. I'd like to see him get a couple wins, and I don't know if the championship is something that's necessarily on the radar for him. Anytime you put him in a car, he's got a chance. I really like to see the King do well as he goes out in 2014.
And we were talking, Steve, and I was talking to one of our sponsors on Horsepower 360, Christy Cottrell, yesterday, and she made it very clear, and I think that I heard it, but I didn't focus on it. But this is just going to be his last full-time year for the World of Outlaws, which leaves the door open for running Knoxville Nationals, maybe Eldora, the King's Royal.
Sure.
He wants to focus on helping his son Craig, trying to further his sprint car career. So I don't think that we've seen the last of the King, but maybe the last on a 92 race World of Outlaws schedule.
Yeah, and how grueling the schedule really is over the last couple of years, and certainly the King, not as young as he used to be, but as competitive as he's always been, picked up a couple of wins last year, and this salute to the King is just going to be fantastic, I think, for 2014, Steve. And one of the biggest announcements that I just loved by the World of Outlaws was the fact that they're returning the Outlaws to Bloomington Speedway, Steve Kinzer's home track, for one last salute in Steve's hometown for 2014. I just thought that was a great salute to really the driver who has built the World of Outlaws Tour into what it is today.
Boy, just goosebumps hearing that announcement. That was something that we weren't aware of yet, and that's going to be really neat. I mean, Clint, that's going to be standing room only.
Yeah, you won't even be able to stand.
No.
You won't even be able to get in there.
Yeah, so that's what we have for you guys tonight. We want to thank you guys for bringing us on Motorsports Madness. We wanted to give a chance to work together with everybody. You can catch us on iTunes and on YouTube. Search Turn 5 Podcast. And we want to thank our sponsors for getting us out here every week.
One more thing, Stephen, before we go. That our Northeast Dirt Modifieds are going to be heading to Florida pretty soon for down to Volusia. And I don't know if they run East Bay, but that whole Florida speed
heading down
weeks.
to Volusia, yeah, for the Dirt Car Nationals. We haven't seen a whole lot of paint schemes coming out. We've been itching to see what the Matt Shepard, Hanky Baldwin Racing team and color schemes are going to look like. So certainly more of that news will be coming out as the next week or two rolls on and they get ready to head to Volusia.
How cool is this, Jacob and James? We've got two shows in one right now. The entire Turn 5 podcast show cast joining Motorsports Madness for a segment about Northeast dirt car racing. It just doesn't get any better than that. Gotta love technology. Thanks all you guys for joining us tonight. We had a great time having you.
Oh, you got it. This has been a blast. Thanks, Tom.
Yeah, and certainly everybody at Race Chaser Online and Speed77 Radio, you guys keep us going with these ideas of how to put the show together and
better ourselves and better the show.
To be under the umbrella really means a lot to us because, otherwise it would just be a couple of guys here shooting the bull about racing here at Casa de Pork Chop Studios.
And we appreciate you guys coming on tonight, Steve, and the entire cast of Turn 5. Thank you guys again, and we look forward to having you on the show here in a couple weeks as the Dirt Car Nationals kick off down at Volusia Speedway Park in Florida.
All right, guys. You guys have a good rest of your show, and thanks again for having us on. We'll talk again soon.
All right, Tom, James, I want to turn to you guys as we get ready to close this show out tonight. Certainly one of the most in-depth and one of the most fun editions of Motorsports Madness I think I've done since we incepted this show back about the middle of May in 2013. But looking at now, getting ready for Daytona Speed Weeks here in just a couple of weeks, James, I want to start with you. There's still so much to look forward to in 2014, but first things first here. Speed Weeks is on tap, and there's two things I'm watching. One is Frank Kimmel. The other is Tony Stewart.
I'm still trying to get my head wrapped around the fact that we just had a show playing a show disguised as another show in Motorsports Madness. That's kind of blowing my mind a lot right now. So, but beyond the cool factor of that, yeah, there's a part of me that wants to go ahead and fast forward straight to the Sprint Unlimited, but there's another part of me that realizes that even though there won't be major racing for us to watch for the next couple of weeks, there's going to be a ton of news that we need to keep our eyes on because it's going to have a significant impact on the 2014 season in all forms of motorsport, really. So just keep your eyes peeled, read all the articles that come our way, and before long, we'll see the cars on track at Daytona.
Yeah, we will. And speaking of articles getting ready to come the fans' way, the reason I mentioned Frank Kimmel is because we're going to have a feature on on RaceChaserOnline.com. Geez, there's been so much going on tonight that everything's starting to blur together now. But on the Race Chaser website tomorrow, we're going to have an exclusive feature with Frank Kimmel as he searches for his first Daytona win. It's been 22 long attempts for Frank. He's not yet come away with a victory in Speed Weeks. He wants to pull that off, and you guys, all the race fans out there, will hear from him tomorrow. But Tom, I know as we get ready to head towards Speed Weeks, a lot of news yet to be covered. The biggest announcement in my mind from this past week was BK Racing signing Alex Bowman and Ryan Truex. We talked about it last Monday night, but certainly still a lot of seats yet to be shored away, and there's going to be a lot more coming out before we hit the ground running for Sprint Unlimited practice in a couple of weeks.
Well, and not just that, but you've got all the short track stuff going on, too, that starts in just a couple of weeks. The Legends cars are down there. They start with a big 1,000-to-win race at Bronson Speedway down near Gainesville, and then go to Auburndale for a bunch of days of racing. You got the modifieds and the late models and the dirt late models and all of the guys, the Northern Dirt Modifieds, all of the short track racing that goes on. Of course, you've also got the K&M Pro East and asphalt modified stuff, Smyrna, and of course the Battle of the Beach again. So it's not just the NASCAR Major Series; it's all of the short track stuff too. This is just a really, really special time of year to be a race fan because you just can go to Florida and literally see almost any type of racing that you want. I wish the Super Modified still ran the series down there, but it should be a lot of fun. And yeah, there's a lot of stuff going on. Still some things to be settled out as far as crew chiefs, drivers, that kind of thing. But the good news is that out of the Phoenix Racing stable came the news that surprised absolutely nobody. Little Gator is officially the driver of the 51.
Oh, do I need to cue my E-Trade baby shock face up somewhere?
Well, it's straight out of the "It's About Time" file. I mean, they made that poor little guy wait forever before they made it official. There should be some sort of extra bonus for that, or sympathy pay or something. That was amazing. It took that long, but it just goes to show again how the business works sometimes. But happy to see that we got him in the seat and ready to go. Bobby Labonte will be a good teammate for him and really a good teacher and a good mentor for Justin Allgaier. So that should be a really interesting team to watch at Daytona as well. So a lot of stuff going on, guys, and you're right. This has been a great show. The fun never stops, and it was to have the Turn 5 guys on just now at the end because they're doing a great job up there in New York, really making an impact and building a following on the dirt tracks, and did a great show at Lighthouse Lanes in Oswego last Sunday with a bunch of the Oswego Speedway pavement drivers, which they weren't really terribly familiar with, and they really did an excellent job. It was a great show, so we're proud to have them as our affiliates up there and to be mentoring and developing them, and just a lot of fun and a lot of stuff to come this year in general with us, both on the air with more shows and bigger shows, and also on Race Chaser Online as well. So we're just getting started. It's going to be a fun ride.
Oh, we are just getting started. And Tom, you mentioned short tracks. Short tracks got underway over the weekend too, and we'll have a lot more on this on our Thursday show. with the Stock Car Steel SRI Motorsports show, but real quickly to tie a bow on that, we had Speed Fest over the weekend at Watermelon Capital Speedway down in Cordell, Georgia. Chase Elliott and John Hunter Nemechek taking the wins in the Super Late Model and Pro Late Model divisions as the ARCA CRA Super Series and the JEG CRA All-Star Tour get ready to kick off. We're going to hear from John Hunter Nemechek on Thursday night's show, and we're hoping to potentially hear from Chase Elliott as well on both of their Speedfest triumphs. It's going to be a lot of fun. Looking forward to Thursday night, Tom. You and I will be back with Kyle Souza, and we'll talk late models, modifieds, ARCA, K&N, you name it. We've probably got it at the short track level for Thursday night's Stock Car Steel SRI Motorsports show.
Yeah, that's going to be a lot of fun. Of course, Thursday night, 7 Eastern, and looking forward to that. We really appreciate the folks at Stock Car Steel and SRI Supplies being a part of what we do on Thursday nights and stepping up and connecting with us as partners. We're just... man, it's going to be a big year here, and the action just getting started, and we're looking forward to it. It should be a lot of fun, and we appreciate everyone's support and all of our Race Chaser Speed77 Radio Nation listening every week and passing the word along, and we're excited about what's to come going forward this year. And Pikester's a good boy. I'll even let him talk V8 supercars a little more. That's an awful lot of fun as well.
Yeah, it is, and we'll be back here a week from tonight on Monday at 7 p.m. Eastern for the next hour of news and interviews from around the world of motorsports. It's Motorsports Madness, and we are a little mad on this show, but for now, for James Pike, Tom Baker, Stephen Ovens, the Turn 5 podcast crew, Joel Sebastianelli, Kyle Souza burgeoning, we'll hear from him on Thursday night, DJ Everett, and everybody else that makes it happen here at Speed77 Radio and Race Chaser Online. My name is Jacob Seelman, reminding all of you race fans out there to keep it off the wall until we meet again. We'll see you at the track, folks. Until next time, so long.